What's the word with the politickers? DamnHomie sat down to talk about the Hoover politics. Ain't nothing bigger than the H. Everything bigger in Texas, leave it to them now. OG Gumby went down there and caused the hurricane, man. For the most part, everybody got their different opinions and outlooks. He just rubbed the majority of them the wrong way. Once them feathers was ruffled, it felt like the hell grew. He ain't gotta come back down here, we ain't gotta go out there. That's when the WWE lip wrestling started. DamnHomie gave her a platform and grew to clear the air and speak on how things go down their way. Sometimes it's hard to hear what everybody got to say, 'cause emotions get involved. It wasn't all that hoopering and hollering going on.
I did an interview with Forl, and he spoke on that. I think he was saying, basically the age comes before anything. And then you had some thoughts on Forl's interview.
Well, yeah, correct. So, what I had to say about it wasn't so much as directed as Forlo. I was just using Forlo as an example because I do agree that what Forlo was saying is that the age does come before everything. But what my stance was is that he didn't completely understand the situation in its entirety and the war that had been going on and the internal conflict that was going on here. And so basically, like, his comment kind of invalidated, what was actually taking place, which I understand it. Like, don't be petty. We're all Hoovers, drop all of the foolishness and come together as one. But to me, like, that would be an impossible task until some things got better addressed. And so also, I spoke to the thing that when Forlo came out and said that none of the other Hoover content creators spoke up to say anything about it as fast as they were able to run to the internet when Gumby was making whatever statements that Gumby made, which eventually everybody tried to pin it as if Gumby was creating and starting a problem, which he didn't. That's false. That was a false narrative. But all I was just saying is that if people were so fast to speak on what Gumby had to say, why is it that nobody is making a response to what Forlo had to say? Because everybody had an opinion at that point in time.
Yeah, that's true. So in your opinion, what would need to change for everybody to come together?
Well, first, it's accountability. So first, people have to acknowledge that the ways that they were taught were incorrect. And then they have to hold the people that taught them the incorrect things accountable instead of being mad at the Hoovers from California for speaking up on it, because as an off branch, being in any other part outside of Los Angeles, you're off branch of that community. So, the people from that community have every right to feel how they feel. If like I told some other content creators before, I said, man, if it ain't blue magic, don't call it blue magic, like off the movie American Gangster, because you can't take somebody else's shit and pervert it in a way. Now, I do believe that you could put your own spin on it based on your geographical location, because you might have a different swag where you live as far as how you dress. You might have different turf boundaries. You might have different enemies. All those things might be different, and you can move accordingly. But I can't see that you completely changing the name of somebody's Sting and feeling like that was okay. And then when the people who originated this speak on it, then now everybody has a problem with that person, as if they want to go to war behind having the correct information. And so, to answer your question, to me, I think the ultimate solution would be like, because Forlook was like, well, we should accept the HCGs because they Hoovers. And that's cool. But I think that my personal opinion is that if we accept them, then they should just be Hoover Crip Gang and drop the 5 deuce, because if you're not going to be because there's a history to reason why 5 deuce is Hoover Gangsta Crips. And there was wars fought internally in California behind that whole name. So to me, if y'all don't want to be Hoover Gangsta Crip, y'all just want to be Hoover Crip Gang, then drop the 5 deuce.
The Big Deal took shots at Gumby. What are your thoughts on that?
So my original thoughts whenever Big Deal came out with the shots at Hoover Gumby was that, I felt like it was a clout chase, because Gumby is, especially at that time, Gumby was one of the most trending topics on YouTube or on the internet content space, period, because there had been a big back and forth between what they say is Texas Hoovers versus LA Hoovers. Which it wasn't really a Texas Hoovers thing in entirety. It was more so Fort Worth Hoovers that had a different program than LA Hoovers. So when Big Deal came out and made the comment, like, Gumby, you're not a spokesperson for five dudes, but everything you're saying is correct, I felt like that was offensive and divisive because granted that he might be correct that since Gumby's from 9 Deuce, he shouldn't be speaking for 5 Deuce. Like, it's something that Hoovers all say is if you're from Hoover, then you can speak on all Hoover business, regardless of what the number is in front of it. So, yeah, and I felt like a lot of people from California at that time start speaking out and making statements when they really didn't have all the background information on what was really going on down here in Texas and why this was such a big thing that was going on.
What was going on in Texas?
Well, I mean, for the better part of the last at least 15, 20 years, there's been like an internal conflict in Texas between two Hoover factions. Houston specifically isn't represented by many other Hoover sets. It's just mostly 5 Deuce here. And what happens is we have 5 Deuce Hoover Gangsta Crips here, and we have a small amount of 5 Deuce Hoover Crip gang members as it pertains to the Houston area. Now, other parts of Texas as a whole, there might be, Hoover Crip gang members scattered everywhere, but their stronghold is like mainly Fort Worth, Texas, or the Texas prison system. And what happens is that when a lot of 5 Deuce Hoover Gangsta Crips were going to TDC, which is the prison system here in Texas, they were getting jumped and removed from the yard, or however y'all call it, like the yards, or getting, what we call it, like getting flushed off the unit because they were Hoover Gangsta Crip. And the Hoover Crip gang members were trying to say that that was fake and that there was no such thing as Hoover Gangsta Crips.
Damn.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And so, when it hit the internet, the main thing is because it's like, how are y'all going to say the people that actually had the correct thing that was representing it authentically was something that was fake? But when Gumby came to the internet, or other members from Hoover, or even in Los Angeles period, said, no, we never heard of 5 Deuce Hoover Crip gang, now all of a sudden it became a really big problem.
Alshon Martin sends a PSA to all the Hoovers and neighborhood Crips in LA, let's stop the BS.
Me personally, like, just knowing from what I know from the inside, which I'm not really at liberty to go into detail about, I felt like all of that was still part of, like, I felt like it was two things. I felt like it was clout chasing, and I also felt like it was some type of humiliation ritual type of thing that they were trying to do to Gumby. I think that the whole purpose of that was to try to discredit Gumby. I see a lot of that going on in this content space, that like people want to, discredit him and humiliate him in order to like bring more credibility and visibility to themselves. So with the thing with Alshon Martin was like basically that, like if he said that, because in Texas, Hoovers and 6-0s don't necessarily beef. Like if there's some type of friction, it's just because you don't like that particular individual and he happens to represent either one of those sets. But as far as just like a collective effort, it ain't no beef like that. And that's probably primarily due to like the explosion of how many Bloods, like it's like the Bloods gained the numbers overnight here to where I guess the Crips kind of had to be forced to stick together because of the common enemy as the Bloods were so deep. But yeah, in regards to Alshon, like I just really felt like that was bad for business. I felt like, that some members of the set were compromised, especially because Whack 100 was the vessel to transfer that message. I was just kind of like wondering, like, damn, well, how much were you paid to go against your own? Especially with Forl being there, and the message that Forl was pushing, like, hey, let's not put all our business out, and like all of this kind of stuff like that. And he told me, like, I know what he spoke to me about, like, hey, the homie shouldn't be dissing the homies or whatever. And then, like, they go on like a couple days later, they go on a major platform and you have this shit explode with another situation of the homies coming at Gumby. It's like all of these people, especially from Hoovers, you got 5, 6 different people from Hoover all coming at one person, which is Gumby, and like saying, like, just painting a narrative about Gumby, but nobody is saying nothing about all the other people that are bringing Hoover politics to the internet or doing flawed shit. You know what I'm saying? And so he also called, Usher also called in to when Forl was back on Fig, and he was saying like, hey, you know, I wouldn't have pressed Gumby, or I wouldn't have did that shit if I knew he was with you. And to me, like, that ain't no respectable shit, because I personally feel like if you got a problem with, especially if you cool with the person, this person you got an issue with, you cool with the person that they with at that moment, that shouldn't stop you from pressing them, especially if you standing in truth or you speaking in truth. You know what I'm saying? If you got something on your mind to say, you should say it. You don't give a fuck. Excuse my language. You shouldn't care who a person is around if you got something on your, you know, got something on your chest that you want to get off.
Facts.
Yeah, I thought that was a very bad look. I felt like that was not honorable.
What are your thoughts on Monster Kody?
So the thing about the stuff with Monster Kody, like, I know, like, Monster Kody is kind of like one of those figures that are up there with, like, Tookie and Raymond Washington. His influence on people, whether blood or crip, you know what I'm saying, is you know, is big. A lot of, I mean, it's even said that the Bloods from New York was started based off of a person reading Monster Kody's book. You know what I mean? But also, I don't feel like anybody is above critique if it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? So, like, knowing that two individuals were having a back and forth that are, you know, they're sworn enemies, when, you know, you can't really tell a person how low that they can go whenever there's a type of battle. Like, you would think that people would respect the dead, but we live in a culture where, you know, you get more clout off disrespecting the dead. So, you know, I just think that whatever he did or however he chose to live his life, I personally, you know, I probably wouldn't have, you know, disrespected him like that. But if I was asked about it, I would speak my truth. And, you know, it's the other side of the coin with that is that Monster Kody and his book is what brought all of this stuff about Hoovers and, you know, Fat Rat or whatever the things they had going on inside the prison system at that time, which gave the Hoovers a very, very bad rep for a long time. And Hoovers still haven't got past or been able to shake. It was because of, you know, Monster Kody's truth that he spoke about in his book. So now that these allegations are coming out about him, it's hard for me to really feel that type of empathy for that situation in that community, because it had already been done to ours.
DamnHomie got groove thoughts on Monster Kody. His brother seemed to think before he speak. Common sense ain't too common nowadays, though. But what he said is true. We live in a culture nowadays where disrespecting the dead is common. Bounty Hunter BJ addressed the cross-dressing allegations that was thrown on Monster Kody now. He said he was wearing a dress and a wig at one point because he was on the run. That's what he know, and that's what he seen for himself. All that other playing with boy games, he don't know nothing about. DamnHomie did our thing with this. This was a solid interview for sure. If you ask me, groove overall synopsis of the situation and the allegations at hand, it ain't no love lost, but he don't feel bad about the rumors either. Y'all go over there to DamnHomie platform and subscribe up. Check out the rest of the interview. Political street views? No, fake news.